RuneScape is full of updates. In fact, it's the most updated game in the world. But what if I told you there was one update that was speculated years ago as a big update, but it never ended up happening? Back in 2019, Jagex ran a Game Jam showcase featuring updates that they were potentially working on, like skilling offhands, an Araxor quest, and other potential future updates, but one always stuck out to me: the Golden Clue Scrolls. This is what the RuneScape team had to say about them at the time.
So Golden Clue Scrolls are essentially a way of bringing in another WoW moment into the game. Obviously, Clue Scrolls now come from skilling, they come from combat, and other things as well. So this is a way to give most aspects of the game just an additional WoW moment. I'm going to drop everything that I'm doing right now because I want to go and do this thing. Yeah. So if you get a Golden Clue Scroll, that will be it, because the idea is essentially that on completion, you will be guaranteed to get a rare item. So you're talking a dye or third age, second age, that sort of stuff. So yeah, you'll literally, as soon as you get that, you'll be thinking, oh god, this could be like a couple of bill, it could be 100 mil, it could be whatever. So you're going to want to drop what you're doing to go and do it straight away.
So yeah, that was the idea. You could get an ultra rare clue scroll. This is similar to getting like Hazelmere's Signet Ring, a super rare type of drop, except this clue would guarantee one huge reward like a dye or third age or something similar. Now, the general idea of this is golden clues are essentially master clues, but with a guaranteed rare drop, as in a super rare drop, plus more treasure trail items. And then there was also a lower tier of silver clues being discussed as well. You could obtain these clue scrolls randomly whenever obtaining a normal clue. So it was said these will be rarer than the Alerno Smith's Hat, but not as rare as Hazelmere's Signet Ring. Now, this update seemed to be pretty split, with some people being excited and then others wondering how it would affect the economy.
Obviously, the initial reaction with the clue community was this is going to destroy the prices of dyes and stuff like that. So to put it out there, these will be very rare.
But 3 years later, the update seems to have been shelved for good. However, with the thought of getting an insanely rare drop guaranteed, the clue community was very one-sidedly against this update, as it was thought it could devalue the logs that the clue collectors are grinding at, some spending thousands and thousands of hours to try to get these rare items. There was also a thought, since this would be obtainable from players that don't do clues themselves, as in like a random guy who does a lot of Slayer and bossing, who usually doesn't bother doing clue scrolls, they might be able to get one of these super rare rewards without actually having to do clues themselves. A lot of people were also worried about the inflation that this could cause. Some players even started forum threads making petitions against golden clues. One forum thread read, "Golden clues are an absolutely terrible idea for many reasons." They then linked the Clue Chaser Discord and their discussion about this. They went on to say that they want to prevent the current design from ever entering the game, as it'll massively devalue current achievements, devalue future achievements, and ruin the market for clue scroll items. One person had put it this way: how silly would it be if there was a golden PVM chest in skilling that could give skillers tier 92s? That would be kind of silly. And at the time, dyes were crashing a lot. Shadow dyes were down under 700 mil at one of their lowest points. Now, I must admit, for me, I looked at some of my old messages to my friends back at the time when we talked about updates in 2019, and personally, I was kind of excited about golden clues. However, I'm not a big clue chaser, and I didn't really think of the ramifications of adding something like this into the game, and it seemed like Jagex didn't think too much about it either. It's been 3 years and golden clues look like they've been shelved for good. My question is, what did you guys think about this at the time? I kind of remembered this update in my head, and that's the reason I wanted to make this video. It seemed like there were differing opinions everywhere, but in the end, after more was revealed about how you actually got the clues, their rarity, a lot of players thought it would do more harm than good. So another potentially huge update that has been teased for years and talked about was Group Iron Man. Now, this had a very successful release in old school RuneScape, and believe it or not, it was talked about in RuneScape 3 for the past 5 years. Apparently they are working on developing it, and it would take some engine work, but for all intents and purposes, they talked about it as if it would be coming, and then it kind of just kept being put off, and it seems as of now that maybe it's shelved and Jagex has no plans to release it fully. Now, one reason against Group Iron Man in RuneScape 3 is that RuneScape 3, unlike Old School, has a lot of items and things that are untradeable. So on Old School Group Iron Man, you have a stash where you can basically share all items except untradables. So you can basically share everything because there's not a ton of untradable stuff in Old School. I mean, there's some like Fire Cape, Fighter Torso, things like that, but a lot of the game is tradable, whereas in RuneScape 3, weapons, armor, everything is augmented. A lot of things you unlock are untradable, whether it be dungeoneering or things like that. So I'm not sure how the synergy would work with sharing things, because that's kind of the point. That's kind of what makes Group Iron Man fun, is the potential to work with your friends, share things, do stuff together. In Old School, they have it so you can have like a shared player-owned house. It's really, really cool, and I think that's one of the reasons that they might be holding off or just potentially shelved Group Iron Man on RuneScape 3 altogether. It is also worth noting that since this would require some sort of engine work for like the shared stash, shared bank, whatever it might be, that this would probably take up a lot of time of the devs, which they could be using on other updates like new skills. So that could also be a reason against this, and a reason why it's probably not coming anytime soon. And one of the other things is, if you're playing Group Iron Man with a group and one person quits, slowly it starts becoming where more and more people in the group stop playing and it slowly dwindles down. I saw that happen a lot with Old School, so I think that is also a potential fault of it. Although I still would definitely play it on RuneScape 3 because it would be really fun just to play with my friends. As something for the general public that the average player would play, I don't think it would be as popular as Old School. Another update that never came to fruition was Raids 2. Now, we all know about Raids 1, Beastmasters Durzag, Yakimaru, and for me personally, it's not one of my favorite pieces of content, to say the least. First off, it's sort of time gated, as you can only really get loot once per day for each. You camp them, but you don't get any more loot, so there's not really a big reason in like killing the bosses, like camping them like you would an elite dungeon boss. Secondly, the drops are just kind of underwhelming, and the puzzle and all the intro and lead up to raids just lack anything that feels like something you envision as a big raid really should. Raids 2 was actually pulled back in 2017, I believe. Yes, Jagex did actually use the polling system once upon a time, and it ended up not doing too hot, mostly because of how much people just didn't enjoy Raids 1, so they weren't clamoring for it on the polls. However, I feel Raids 2 could have potential to be something sort of like an elite dungeon, but with more content and more interesting loot. Raids 2 was rumored to be being worked on for years and years after Raids 1 release, and 7 years later, it seems like it's just not meant to be. There's even some really cool concept art based on Raids 2, like a fire elemental boss and an air elemental boss, and a bunch of other cool reward systems and graphics. My question for you, do you think Raids 2 should come out anytime soon, or should we leave Raids 1 as the first and only raid in RuneScape? You guys can let me know below.